I still remember the sound of laughter filling the room. The kind of laughter that feels warm and harmless. The kind that makes you believe everything is fine, colorful balloons were tied to the chairs. The smell of cake mixed with cheap candles music played softly in the background. Nothing felt dangerous. Nothing felt wrong. It was my son's birthday, 12 years old. Standing at that strange line between being a child and becoming something more aware, I stood near the kitchen counter holding a paper plate, smiling without really smiling, watching people move around like actors in a play. I no longer felt part of my sister was there. Of course, she always knew how to take space, how to pull attention toward herself without asking. Her laugh was louder than everyone else. Her jokes sharper, her confidence effortless. People loved her. They always had she teased me like she always did. Little jokes about how I used to be, how I was too serious, too quiet, too sensitive. Everyone laughed, including me, because that was easier than explaining why those jokes still hurt then. Someone clapped their hands and said, "Come on, birthday boy, say something funny." My son stepped forward. His shoulders were a little stiff. His smile didn't fully reach his eyes before he spoke. He looked at me just for a second. In that moment, my chest tightened. I didn't know why, I only knew something was coming. He cleared his throat and said that since everyone was joking, he had one to laughter again. My sister laughed the loudest then. He said something that didn't sound like a joke at all. He said it was funny how people make jokes about family. While pretending they never broke one, the laughter stumbled. A few people smiled, unsure. Someone coughed. My sister tilted her head, still smiling. Then my son looked straight at her. Not angry, not loud, just honest. And he said, "You shouldn't joke about people when you are the reason." Dad left. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that presses against your ears. I heard a sharp sound, glass hitting the floor. My sister dropped her drink. It shattered near her feet, liquid spreading across the tiles. One moved, no one spoke. I felt my legs weaken. My hands went cold. Someone tried to laugh it off. Kids say the strangest things. Someone turned the music up, but the room had already changed. I walked toward my son slowly, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear. I knelt in front of him, asked him softly what he meant. He swallowed. His eyes flicked around the room at the adults who suddenly couldn't look at him. He said Grandma thought he was asleep one night. He heard her talking. She said Aunt ruined everything. She said Dad didn't just leave. He paused, took a breath. He said Dad was pushed away. The truth settled in my chest like a weight. I looked up around the room at faces that avoided mine, at relatives who suddenly found the walls interesting. That was when I understood this wasn't confusion. This was guilt. Later that night, after everyone left, after the balloons sagged, after the cake dried on plates, I stood in the living room facing my sister. She cried first, said it wasn't what it looked like, said my son misunderstood. Then she got angry, said I wasn't there enough, said she was just helping. Her words came fast, too fast. She said things happened, things went too far. Things she didn't plan. Each sentence cracked something open inside. Mesh had crossed lines, not once, not by accident. She had listened while my marriage struggled. She had whispered doubts. She had painted herself as support. And when my husband left, she let me wear the shame. She watched me rebuild alone, watched my son grow without his father, and smiled beside me. And every family photo, I didn't scream, I didn't cry. Something quieter replaced all of that clarity. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to my son breathe in his room. I realized something important. The truth had already spoken once through a child, and it was time I stopped protecting lies that were never mine. From that day on, I started watching, listening, remembering. I didn't confront anyone else. I didn't warn my sister. I let her feel safe. I asked gentle questions, reconnected with relatives I had lost touch with, listened more than I spoke. Patterns appeared, stories didn't match. Memories shifted depending on who was speaking, and every trail, every small detail led back to the same place. I learned that betrayal doesn't always look cruel. Sometimes it looks caring, helpful, familiar. The more I learned, the calmer I became, because when the truth is solid, it doesn't need to rush. It waits, and it grows heavy, and when it finally falls, it doesn't need to shout. It simply lands. Asterisk, I let time pass, not days, not weeks, months. Time has a way of loosening people's guards, especially those who believe they are untouchable. My Sister went back to being herself, loud, confident, comfortable. She joked again about family, about the past, about how strong she was for surviving everything. People still laughed, but not the same way I noticed small things first. Whispers that stopped when I entered a room, glances exchanged between older relatives, questions asked carefully. I never pushed, I never accused, I only listened. I reached out to an aunt I had not spoken to in years. We met for coffee. She spoke slowly, like she was choosing every word with care. She told me she always felt something was wrong, that the story never sat right. That my sister always seemed to prepare. Another cousin told me something similar. Then another pieces began to connect, not emotionally. Logically, my sister had been telling different versions of the same story depending on who she spoke to, always placing herself as the helper, the victim, the one trying to fix, and I realized then that the truth was already known. Just scattered, unspoken waiting. I kept collecting. I wrote things down at night. Dates, conversations, things said years ago that suddenly made sense. And through all of this, I watched my son. He became quieter after the party, more observant, less careless with his words. One night, he asked me if he did something wrong. Held him close, told him he did the bravest thing anyone could do. Told him that telling the truth is never wrong, even when it makes people uncomfortable. That was the moment I decided whatever came next, I would do it right, no shouting. No chaos, just truth placed where it could no longer be ignored. Another family gathering came together quietly, no celebration, just a dinner. My sister arrived late, as usual, talking loudly as she walked in. Owning the room, she sat across from me, smiling confident. Halfway through the meal, she started again, another joke, another small story about how difficult things used to be with me, how she tried to help, how things fell apart anyway. The room laughed politely. I put my fork down. My heart was calm. That surprised me. Asked her a simple question. When did you say you spoke? To my husband last, she answered without thinking a date too quickly. I nodded, then asked another question. About something she could not possibly know unless she'd been closer than she. Claimed she paused. The room shifted. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I told the story slowly, clearly. I repeated what different people had told me, what I'd been told years apart. What no longer matched, I said names, I said places, I said words she once used. Her smile faded. She tried to interrupt, tried to laugh, but the room didn't follow her. This time someone asked her a question. Then another. Her answers tangled, contradicted. The confidence she always wore slipped. Just for a moment, and that moment was enough. She stood up suddenly, said she felt sick. Left without finishing her meal. No one stopped her after that. The calls slowed. The invitations stopped. People didn't confront her. They didn't need to trust. Had quietly stepped away weeks later. She called me. Her voice sounded different, smaller. She asked why I did this, why I ruined her image. I told her I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped covering it. She hung up. I never heard from her again. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. The past didn't disappear, but something heavy lifted. My son smiled. More left, easier, and I slept better knowing the truth no longer lived in the shadows. I learned something important through all of this. Betrayal doesn't always break you in one moment. Sometimes it stretches over years, quiet, persistent, and revenge doesn't always look like destruction. Sometimes it looks like truth standing still while lies fall apart on their own. The hardest part is waiting, trusting that honesty carries its own weight, but when it finally lands, it brings something rare. Peace asterisk after. My sister disappeared from our lives. People began speaking more freely. Stories came out in pieces, late night phone calls, long messages that started with, I should have said something sooner. I listened. Not with anger, not with pride, just with acceptance. Some admitted they suspected things years ago. Others said they were afraid of breaking the family, afraid of choosing sides. I understood. Fear keeps many truths buried. What mattered was that my son saw something different now. He saw that honesty has a cost, but silence costs more. One evening, he asked me if I hated his own. I thought about that question for a long time. I told him no, that hate keeps you tied to the past, and I didn't want to be tied anymore. I told him I felt sad for her because someone who builds their life on lies is always afraid of the truth. He nodded like he understood more than his age suggested. Months passed. Then, years my life didn't become loud or dramatic. It became steady. I rebuilt trust slowly with myself first. I stopped blaming myself for things that were never mine to carry. stopped apologizing for taking up space. Sometimes I saw my sister's name come up in conversations, always from a distance, always without warmth. She had moved, changed jobs, changed circles, but the pattern followed her. It always does. One day, my son came home from school smiling. He said they had talked about courage. He said he told the class that courage is telling the truth. Even when your voice shakes, I realized then that the real outcome of everything was not revenge, it was growth. The truth didn't just free me, it shaped him. Looking back, I no longer remember the sound of glass breaking. I remember the silence after, the moment when lies finally ran out of room. And I know now that truth does not rush, it waits patiently until someone brave enough speaks. Sometimes that voice belongs to a child, and when it does, it can change everything. Asterisk. Looking back now, I understand something I did not before. The truth does not need to be forced, it rises when the time is right. I spent years protecting people who never protected me, carrying guilt that was never mine, teaching myself to stay quiet for the sake of peace. But peace built on silence is fragile. It breaks the moment honesty appears. That night did not just change my family, it changed me. It showed me that strength is not shouting, it is standing still while the truth speaks for itself. My son did not mean to expose anyone. He simply told what he knew, and that honesty was more powerful than any plan I could have made. I learned that betrayal hides best where we feel safest, among family, among people we trust without question, but lies cannot survive forever. They crack under their own weight. Truth does not chase, it waits, and when it finally steps forward, it brings clarity, not chaos. Justice does not always look like punishment. Sometimes it looks like freedom from doubt, freedom from blame, freedom to move forward without carrying someone else's mistakes. Today, I live differently. I speak more honestly. I listen more carefully, and I teach my son that courage is telling the truth even when your voice feels small, because one honest moment, one brave sentence can change everything. This story is not about revenge, it is about release. It is about choosing truth over silence and learning that the most powerful justice is letting the truth be seen and walking away at peace.